Welcome back to USA Car Reviews, the channel where we take a deep dive into the cars that have shaped history and the ones that are making history right now. Today, we're stepping back into the early 70s to explore one of the most iconic, beloved, and recognizable cars of all time, the Volkswagen Beetle. And not just any Beetle, but the new for 1973 Volkswagen Beetle, a year that brought subtle but important changes to this legendary little car. Whether you're a lifelong VW enthusiast, a curious classic car fan, or someone who just appreciates a timeless design, you're going to enjoy this journey. Let's start with what made the Beetle such a cultural icon by the time 1973 rolled around. When the car first appeared in America back in the late 1940s, it was unlike anything else on the road. It was small when America loved big cars. It was air-cooled when everyone else went water-cooled. And it had a shape that made it instantly recognizable from a block away. By the time we get to 1973, the Beetle had been in the US for more than 2 decades and had earned a reputation for reliability, affordability, and charm. But Volkswagen wasn't content to let it sit still, so for 1973, they made several tweaks to keep the Beetle relevant and appealing in a changing automotive landscape. The first thing you notice on the 1973 model is that familiar rounded shape. It's still the same friendly, curved design that looks just as much at home in a small European village as it does cruising down an American highway. But look closer and you'll see some changes. For example, this year saw the introduction of the larger, curved windshield in the Super Beetle. This gave the driver more visibility and a slightly more modern look. The bumpers were also updated to meet new US safety regulations. They're bigger, they stick out a little farther, and they feature those black rubber bumper guards to better protect the car from low-speed impacts. If you've ever owned or driven a Beetle, you know that part of the magic is the simplicity. The doors feel solid, they close with that unmistakable VW thunk, and once you're inside, everything is laid out in a straightforward, no-nonsense way. The dashboard in the 1973 Beetle keeps things minimal, with a single large speedometer front and center, a fuel gauge, and a few simple switches. The glove box is right there in front of the passenger, and the heating and ventilation controls are about as basic as it gets. The curved windshield in the Super Beetle version also allowed for a redesigned dash with a bit more padding and better crash safety. Under the rear deck lid, the 1973 Beetle still carried the famous air-cooled, flat-4 engine. In the United States, it was the 1,585cc engine, producing around 46 horsepower. That may not sound like much by today's standards, but in the lightweight Beetle, it was more than enough to keep up with traffic in the 70s and to climb hills with confidence. The beauty of this engine was not speed, it was simplicity and durability. Air cooling meant no radiator, no water pump, and fewer parts to fail. Regular oil changes, valve adjustments, and a little bit of TLC would keep these engines running for hundreds of thousands of miles. And for the do-it-yourself mechanic, the Beetle was a dream. You could pull the engine out with basic tools, and parts were inexpensive and widely available. The transmission was typically a 4-speed manual, though there was also an optional semi-automatic, auto stick, available for those who wanted a clutch-free experience. The manual gearbox had that signature VW feel, with a long but precise throw, and shifting through the gears was part of the joy of driving a Beetle. On the road, the 1973 Beetle delivered a driving experience that was unique then and remains unique today. The steering is light, thanks to the lack of power assist, and you get a real mechanical connection to the front wheels. The rear engine layout gives you excellent traction in wet or snowy conditions, making the Beetle a favorite for people in colder climates. The ride in the standard Beetle could be a bit firm over rough roads, but the Super Beetle, with its McPherson strut front suspension, smoothed things out considerably and offered more precise handling. Fuel economy was another big selling point. In an era before hybrids and electric cars, getting over 25 miles per gallon from a reliable, easy-to-maintain vehicle was a big deal. For budget-conscious drivers and college students, the Beetle was often the perfect choice. Inside, you didn't get luxury, but you did get charm. The vinyl seats were durable and easy to clean, the interior colors were cheerful, and the whole cabin had a cozy, welcoming feel. If you opted for the Super Beetle, you also got more front trunk space, thanks to the reworked suspension, which made it more practical for carrying groceries or luggage. 1973 was also a year when the Beetle faced growing competition. Japanese automakers like Toyota and Datsun were bringing small, efficient cars to the US market that offered more power and more modern features. But what the Beetle had that the others didn't was personality. Driving a Beetle wasn't just about getting from point A to point B, it was about being part of a movement, a style, and in some ways, a rebellion against the idea that bigger was better. The Beetle's reputation for reliability was built on real-world performance. Stories of Beetles starting in sub-zero temperatures, surviving cross-country road trips without a hiccup, and shrugging off decades of daily driving were common. And if something did go wrong, there was a huge network of independent VW shops and enthusiasts ready to help. By 1973, Volkswagen had sold millions of Beetles worldwide, and the car's design had barely changed since its early days. That consistency was part of its charm, but it also meant that the Beetle was starting to feel a bit dated compared to more modern designs. Still, for many buyers, that was exactly the point. If you bought a Beetle in 1973, you weren't looking for the latest gadget or the most advanced technology, you were looking for a car that you knew would work, that you could fix yourself if needed, and that made you smile every time you saw it parked in your driveway. One of the reasons the Beetle continues to be so loved today is that it's more than just a car. It's a piece of design history, a symbol of practicality and individuality, and for many people, it's a rolling scrapbook of memories. Road trips to the beach, first dates, camping weekends, and even learning to drive, so many life moments happened in a Beetle. The 1973 model sits in a special place in the Beetle timeline. It was still true to the original spirit, but it had been updated just enough to meet new safety standards and to keep it competitive. If you see one today, whether it's a pristine showroom example or a well-loved daily driver with a few dents and faded paint, it's hard not to smile. Here at USA Car Reviews, we appreciate cars that stand the test of time, and the 1973 Volkswagen Beetle is one of those rare vehicles that transcends its era. It's simple, it's reliable, it's instantly recognizable, and it connects with people on an emotional level in a way that few cars ever have. Whether you're restoring one in your garage, driving one to work every day, or just admiring them at a classic car show, the Beetle remains a reminder that sometimes, less really is more. And that's the beauty of this little Volkswagen. It doesn't try to be something it's not. It's not fast, it's not flashy, and it doesn't have the latest technology. But it is honest. It delivers exactly what it promises, a dependable, fun to drive, easy to maintain car that brings joy to its owners year after year. If you've ever driven a Beetle, you know that it's not just transportation, it's an experience. It's the sound of that air-cooled engine puttering behind you, the smell of the warm interior on a summer day, and the way people wave or smile as you drive by. The 1973 model keeps all of that magic while quietly making a few improvements to make life with a Beetle just a little bit better. So, whether you're here because you're thinking of buying one, you're in the middle of restoring one, or you just love seeing these cars out in the wild, I think we can all agree that the 1973 Volkswagen Beetle is one of those rare classics that will never truly go out of style. Thanks for watching USA Car Reviews, where we celebrate cars with history, heart, and character. If you enjoyed this look back at the 73 Beetle, be sure to check out our other classic car reviews and subscribe for more deep dives into the machines that move us. Until next time, keep your engine running and your wheels turning.